Good to see you all. More people will be joining hopefully in a couple of minutes. That's generally how we start. So we'll begin. Anna has very, with prescience, has put up some prayers, but we want to start with the prayers at the beginning, Anna, rather the Sangye Churang Soke Chognam La. There we go. Sangye Churang Soke Chognam La. Jangchu Padu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sognam Ki Dola Penche Sange Drupa Sho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, whatever number of lives it takes, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all wandering beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chognam La Jangchu Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunki Ke Sognam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Sho. By offering this ground, this mandala, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. You should know, some of you, many of these prayers were translated by John Landau and Alex, along with Kamlung and Sherpa Tulkus many years ago. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those trained. Idam Guru Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, thank you. So good to see you. Hi, Jennifer. Join us. I think, yeah, there he is. John Lando's still here for some reason. Hi. So let's begin with a little meditation. Relax your body. Relax your mind. Place your attention on the breathing in front and leaving other thoughts, other contents of your mind aside without following them. Allow them to disappear by keeping the respiration as your object of mindfulness. Simply knowing when you're breathing in as opposed to out, and whether it is a long breath or a short breath. One portion of your mental consciousness, like a mental spy, watching whether you are indeed holding the respiration, being mindful of it, and whether other thoughts are arising that you're pursuing, kind of multitasking. So if you notice that, withdraw your attention away from those other thoughts, that other content, invested that mental energy in the mindfulness of the breathing. Once you've reached a little equilibrium in terms of not following thoughts that are arising in your mind, sort of a clear mind, turn your attention to the mental consciousness itself. Very, very subtle, that which is clear in knowing. And the way that we can recognize it at first is by recognizing its contents, because its nature is very subtle. It's clear light nature. Thoughts of the past, the future, present. All like clouds in an otherwise clear sky. Sense the spaciousness between the thoughts, even where the thoughts are, the spaciousness that allows those thoughts to be present. The lack of any obstruction to the arising of mental objects and their reabsorption back into the mental consciousness. Just focusing on that clear light nature. If you're familiar with it, almost a sense of relief, a sense of joy and recognizing everything's okay. You can develop that which you have not developed in your mind. You can get rid of all of the factors that others observe in you that you don't observe. You can get rid of the factors that you do observe, all of them. There's no hindrance in the mind, that all of these mental faults are adventitious and permanent due to causes and conditions. This is what's called conventional clear light nature of the mind, also called the developmental Buddha nature. We have this. It's a great possession. The fact that what's even more great is that we can recognize it due to this auspicious moment of a life of leisure and endowment. Buddha called this auspicious moment because it's short-lived. But within this short lifespan, we can create the causes for future lives as a human or God, or we can develop the causes and even achieve liberation from samsara, nirvana. But having encountered the Buddhist teachings on the Mahayana, where the Buddha praised bodhicitta, we begin to investigate that and see that we have a great indebtedness to all living beings, all beings with minds, all sentient beings. They've been our mother and depthlessly kind numberless times. We're exactly equal with them in wanting to be free of suffering and wanting to have happiness. And they are in the same situation in cyclic existence that we recognize ourselves in, completely under the influences of the origin, the causes of suffering, the origination of suffering, klesha and karma and klesha. We ourselves, having teachers, Mahayana gurus, having a life of leisure and endowment right now, we can recognize this and be working to escape from it, overcome its influences for ourselves and others who are guideless under the sway of the worldly dharmas. Feeling affection for sentient beings, feeling as a result of that compassion for them, understanding their suffering, the depth of suffering, even the most luxurious, powerful, wealthy beings with the greatest pleasures, affection and fame and so forth. Even those very factors are the nature of suffering. They will change into suffering of suffering endlessly in cyclic existence unless those individuals can escape from cyclic existence. So thinking, I can take that responsibility to help them in that long term. To do so, I have to achieve enlightenment, because anything along the line, even a 10th level bodhisattva, cannot provide all of the aid flawlessly that a Buddha can. To achieve Buddhahood, I need to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom, which are explained in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, all the Buddha Sutras, Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, Chandrakirti's entry into the middle way, supplement to the middle way, the Madhyamakavatara, and its commentary by Lama Tsong Khapa, explaining method and wisdom, especially the accumulation of wisdom, that up till now we've been ignorant of. To think I'm going to participate in the class today in order to accumulate the two collections, in order to become a Buddha, in order to benefit all sentient beings. That's my reason for participating in the class, but also my reason for everyday life, every morning when I wake up. Way, especially to practice the accumulation of merit, the first 5 perfections of the Bodhisattva. Maybe, oh, yeah. And how to practice wisdom, accumulate wisdom, the perfection of wisdom. That's my long-term goal. Okay. So thank you. Bring your attention back to the present. Good to see many of you. Richard Michael Hoffman, Rocio's here. Michael Hoffman, are you wandering in by mistake? Oh, hi, Michael. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I am here intentionally on purpose.
Okay, good. Okay, just in case you were you didn't know this was a class. Also, we have John Landau again with us, with a smiling countenance there. There he is. Okay, got a smile. Good to see you. So before we begin, anyone have any Dharma questions, Dharma itches they need scratching before we begin? Anything that's come up since our last meeting? No? Okay. There are various motivations that the gurus give before teachings, Dharma teachings. The one that we've been pursuing for the last couple of years that I've, starting to calm the mind through watching the breathing, then watching the clear light nature of the mind, and then recognizing this precious opportunity, this auspicious moment that the Buddha referred to, that often in the text is called a life of leisure and endowment, and how we could use it to accumulate the collections of merit and wisdom. That's just obviously one particular kind of motivation. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, other lamas often would start with recognizing our own situation in cyclic existence. Since beginningless time, we've been entangled in suffering one way or another. Sometimes obvious, suffering of suffering, sometimes less obvious, like changeable suffering, even we thought it was great, and all pervasive compounded suffering all the time. Sort of that's another theme of developing that kind of motivation. So having one of our students in Singapore, Hun King, has texted me a couple of times about the same question that I think I've answered many times, but I want to address it so that she feels that she got her due, her answer. She said, yesterday. Hey, hi, Venerable George. I would be very grateful if you would kindly help me with the following question in class. I learned that all phenomena are dependent arising, but not all phenomena come into being by cause and effect. What's the difference? What's the reason? Okay. So would anyone like to offer their own explanation? Okay. Oh, yeah, Jennifer. Okay.
I don't know if it's right, but I'm thinking about conditioned phenomena, which are impermanent, versus, for instance, permanent phenomena, which could be dependent arisings, but they're not necessarily based on causes and conditions.
Good answer, I think. Yeah. So one crux of an answer, as Jennifer has supplied, is that from the Prasangika point of view, dependent arisings, well, I think even from the Madhyamaka point of view, including Svatantrika, dependent arisings are not necessarily impermanent. They arise in the sense of existing, not due to, let's say, permanent phenomena, not due to causes and conditions, but due to being imputed upon their parts, even uncompounded space as parts. And you can even say moments, the present emptiness of this cup, the past emptiness of this cup, and so forth. So that would be a short answer, and I will provide Kun King with some other details in in her WhatsApp feed later. Okay, so good to see you. Yeah, Shanka.
Venerable, my long story, my computer's out, so I'm joining from my phone, but I don't want to hold it forever, so I'm going to put myself, stop my video, but I'll be attending the class.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Yeah, you could also prop it up with a book or something, but yeah, do as you
If I
wish.
can find something suitable, I'll do that. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So here we are in the refutation of production from others. We're on the section in the sixth bhumi. And one of the special qualities of the sixth bhumi was that the bodhisattvas had a special practice of the 10 equalities, the first of which was all phenomena are equal, all impermanent phenomena at least are equal in being non-produced. So as Nagarjuna's, the first stanza of his fundamental wisdom says, not from, paraphrasing, not from self, not from other, not from both self and other, not causelessly, no phenomena is produced anywhere at any time. And implication meaning not inherently produced. And so we've been going over that. So far, we eliminated, we've followed Chandrakirti and Lama Tsongkhapa's exposition of refuting production from self, like the Samkhya position that the sprout already exists in the seed in some form. And so when the sprout is produced, it is produced from itself. So we've refuted that. And now we're in the section, we're finishing up the section of refutation from other. Generally, Prasangika accepts, does accept conventionally phenomena are produced from other. The sprout is produced from something other than itself, the seed, but a conventional other. Here in the vocabulary, refuting these four kinds of production, production from other is assumed to be production from an inherently existent other. So that's where this general section we're at. And today we're going to begin, and maybe people can give the correct page number. This section in Jimpa's translation says, these passages show that citing the example of the two sides of a scale, one ascending and the other descending, is inappropriate for demonstrating how the seed and sprout are simultaneous, because their two acts, that is, ceasing and arising, happen to occur simultaneously. Who can remind us what page that is in the written copy?
Page 217, Venerable George.
Page
Actually, I think it's
217. You happen to have that.
Oh, or maybe it starts at the bottom of 216. Perhaps.
216,
it's
these
actually at the
passages
top
show.
of on the hard copy, it's the top of 216.
Oh, in the hard copy, it's the top of 216. Okay. And if you happen to have it as a digital copy on your pad, you can search for these passages show that. You'll find if that phrase occurs more than once in the text, you can just go through the place through the 6th chapter. Okay, so what is this talking about? Just to go back, let me just read the paragraph that we finished last time. So this was commentary to verse 619. Well, might as well read 619 itself. Jimpa's translation says, for as you contend, that which is arising is about to arise. Or you could say is approaching arisal, so does not yet exist, while that which is ceasing, though existent, is about to disintegrate. It's about to disappear. If this is so, how can such a case be likened to a scale? It makes no sense to speak of arising when there is no producer. So that last line we mentioned in Venerable Jones' translation, the FPMT translation of the text, she puts that last line a little bit further on because his commentary is not connected with this. So the idea is that the analogy is found in the Rice Seedling Sutra of a scale and talking about arising, cause and effect, and so forth. So the scale itself, the pans or the arm of the scale, or as common analogy, you can think teeter-totter or seesaw or whatever. The changing of the two positions are indeed simultaneous. You can see with your eye, they take place at the same time. And if one thinks that analogy refers to the seed and the sprout existing at the same time, that's completely wrong. Even if you think that the two actions of rising and falling of the scale, the analogy refers to the two actions of disintegration of the cause and the arisal of the result. So that's always going to be the case, right? If you have cause and effect, something is said to be the cause of something else. When the result arises, is in the process of arising, that means it has not yet arisen. It's in the process of arising. And at that point, the cause is in the process of disappearing, disintegrating, you could say. If you think of a physical example like a seed and the sprout that results from it, while the sprout is kind of coming out, is not yet manifest as a sprout, the seed is in the process of disintegration, and those two actions seem to be seen as simultaneous. So that's the context. So the commentary says in Jimpa's translation, we read last time, for as you contend, that which is called arising is because it is about to arise. It is in the process of approaching arisal. Yeah, I don't have the Tibetan right there. Does not yet exist in the present. Does that make sense? Something is about to arise, is in the process of arising. It is not yet existent. While that which is ceasing is existent. Although it's existent, it is about to disintegrate. That is to say, the seed is existent at the moment while it's ceasing, but it's about to disintegrate. It's in the process of approaching disintegration so that it's no longer called a seed. So it does not exist in the present. So it does exist in the present. So that which is ceasing, which is disintegrating, does exist in the present, whereas the sprout that is approaching arisal does not yet exist. If this is the case, if this is so, in that at the moment when the sprout is about to arise, the seed is present, but the sprout is in the future, is a future phenomena, how can such a case, the temporal status of the seed and sprout, be likened to the ascending and descending sides of a scale? They cannot be. The temporal states of the seed and the sprout. So what it's saying is that although the arm or the pans of the scale are seen to be rising and falling simultaneously, it's not a perfect analogy to the seed and the sprout, because one is present when the other is absent. While the seed is still present in the process of disintegrating, the sprout is not yet present. When the sprout is finally present, the seed is already disintegrated and it's not there. So how can that be? They cannot be. It cannot be the case that the temporal state of the seed and the sprout could be likened to the ascending and descending of the sides of the scale. They cannot be. Because when the twin movements of the two sides of the scale are present, the ascending and descending of the scale also exists simultaneously. When the twin movements of the two sides of the scale are present, the ascending and descending of the scale also exists simultaneously. In contrast, there is no simultaneity between the seed and the sprout. Okay, that's where we finished last class, and I just read this next paragraph. That much clear? Rocio, how are you doing? Clear? Okay. So these passages show that, citing the example of the two sides of a scale, one going up, one ascending, and the other going down, descending, is inappropriate for demonstrating how the seed and sprout are simultaneous. Okay, that's clear. So what's the analogy for? It's what do we say? It's inappropriate for demonstrating how the seed and sprout are simultaneous because they are not simultaneous. Cause and effect is never simultaneous. Because their two acts of ceasing and arising happen to occur simultaneously. So even though the action of ceasing and arising are simultaneous, the cause and the effect are not simultaneous. They do not demonstrate, however, that if the two acts happen to occur at the same time, this necessarily means that the two things should themselves exist simultaneously at that very moment. Is that what we just said? I think that's what we've been going over, right? They do not demonstrate, however, that if two acts happen to occur at the same time, the acts of ceasing and arising, being produced, that this necessarily means that the two things whose acts we are speaking of, meaning the seed and the sprout in this case, should themselves exist simultaneously in that very moment. That's clear, right? Okay. So then, continuing, now if the opponent were to think, although there is no simultaneity between something like a seed I have difficulty parsing this. Although there is no simultaneity between something like a seed, its sprout, there is simultaneity
I
between.
think the word "and" got dropped.
Yeah, and in my notes there, yeah, it seems like Jinpa left out the word "and." Is that right? So the FPMT translation has the first part of that sentence is saying doubt. So it's indicating that this is a qualm. Although two phenomena such as seed and sprout do not exist at the same time, their actions exist at the same time. So the Thupten Jinpa's translation probably should have that word "and" there. Although there is no simultaneity between something like a seed and its sprout, there is simultaneity between the two acts of these two. Thupten Jinpa says, this too is untenable. The FPMT translation has the first part as a doubt, a qualm, and then that this is the answer. This too is untenable. These opponents did not assert actions to be objectively distinct from the things themselves. So what's being referred here is that the lower tenets believe that the let's say the disintegration of the seed, that process is not distinct. Is that what he is? Yeah, it's not distinct from the seed itself. And the process of arising of the sprout is not distinct from the sprout itself. FPMT translation says that too is not suitable because those disputants do not assert actions to be different objects from phenomena, and because here the two actions are in the context of refuting inherent existence. So yeah, so that's the next sentence in Jinpa's translation. Furthermore, the context here is in the refutation of the intrinsic existence, or I like to say inherent existence of the twin acts. How are we doing? Making sense? Stephen, yeah.
Well, thank you, Venerable George. I'm just musing here. When we say twin acts, are there really two separate acts going on? Because it seems to me like if you're doing a transformation from a seed to a sprout,
Right.
necessarily, if you transform from the seed, you are transforming towards the sprout.
Right. Right.
Like going from, the example you like to use, from Delhi to Dharamsala.
Right.
Necessarily, you're going away from Delhi, but approaching Dharamsala.
Yeah. John will remember the many bus trips from before we had access to cabs and minibuses in Dharamsala, going from Delhi to Dharamsala in the bus. Trip example used in many contexts. So here, what is when you talk about cause and effect, let's say the seed, you can use a terminology that the seed transforms into the effect. That almost sounds a little bit like friendly words to the Samkhya, right? Because they were talking about the unmanifest sprout transforms, becomes manifest in the sprout once the seed is disintegrated. But here, we're talking about the seed and the sprout as being other, right? That's the context. So lower tenets, understanding that otherness to be some kind of real thing, or finely tuned, inherently existent other, as the Svatantrikas would have it, that's where the problem arises. So they're other, so you can treat them separately. The seed is disintegrating because it's other than the sprout, and the sprout is rising. Does that help a little? Good. Okay. Shanka, you're back. There you go. You're on your phone. Okay.
Sorry,
There-
I don't know how to work this stupid thing on the phone because I've never really joined Zoom on phone. Anyway, so if I understand this correctly, then let me try to restate this and see if I've gotten it. So what you're saying, or what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, is the simultaneity of the ceasing of the seed and the arising of the sprout don't necessarily imply that the seed and the sprout themselves are simultaneous. But
Right.
exist simultaneously.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So the actions are those actions are simultaneous. The disintegration of the seed is taking place at the same time as the arisal of the sprout. But that doesn't mean that the seed is present when the sprout is present, because the seed is still existing until it's disintegrated, and the sprout doesn't exist until it is produced. So neither of them will exist at the same time. There'll never be a case where the seed and the sprout are simultaneous. Okay.
This is kind of like Zeno's paradox, you know.
Is it?
Well, you know, when is the arising end, and the, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you keep having the seed.
I can't remember which one is Zeno's. Is it that where he's racing the turtle, or what? What is it?
No, well, yes, that's right. Because if he just keeps, if he basically halves it every single time, right? Then when will he ever get to the finish line, right?
Right. Okay. Good point. Okay. So continuing, there is another fault as well. So that's not only faults that the Prasangika finds with the opponents who are saying that the seed and the sprout are simultaneous. The sprout, which in relation to its act of arising is the agent. Okay, now we get some brain teaser. Yeah, Louise has to think. Okay, let's see if whose mind goes berserk here. There is another fault as well. The sprout, which in relation to its act of arising is the agent, is of the future in the moment of its arising. So the sprout does not yet exist at that time. What about this phrase, the sprout, which in relation to its act of arising is the agent? Paul, could you explain what that means?
I'm not entirely sure, George. I'm thinking about it.
Okay, yeah. So if you talk about the sprout and its activity is arising, right? So whenever you have an action, remember when we talked about what was it? This trinity of what was it? Chache lesum. Remember chache lesum? This cha means action or activity. Che stands for chepapo, the agent. And lei means that which is acted upon. You'll always be able to analyze things. So at least we here we're just talking about the action and its agent. An action always has an agent. So here, this may sound curious to you. When you talk about the action of arising of the sprout, what's the agent of that? You might want to say it's the seed, but the agent of that is actually the sprout itself. Okay. This is going to get, you'll have to put on your thinking
travel?
cap. Come again, Luis?
Time travel?
Time
I
travel?
don't get it. Yeah. How could it be the agent?
All right. Okay. Let's see what's said here. There's another fault as well. The sprout, which is in relation to its active arising, is the agent. So the active arising is the activity, and its chepapo, the action, is the sprout itself. That sprout is of the future in the moment of arising. Just what you were saying about time travel. So the sprout does not yet exist at that time, even though it should be the agent of the active arising. Without its existence, however, without the existence of the sprout, it makes no sense to speak of an arising, because the sprout is the agent of arising. One second, I'll just say one more sentence, Richard. It makes no sense to speak of arising, which is the dependent activity when there is no sprout, the producer or the agent. Yeah, Richard.
We're talking about intrinsically existing sprouts, right? We're not talking about a dependent arising here.
Right. We're not talking about the mere production that the present Gika talks about. We're talking about it as though it were inherently existent. I like your background there. It looks like you're in a black room for some.
That's exactly what I'm in. But because if we're talking about a conventional existence, then the agent of the sprout is the seed. But if we're talking about inherently existing sprouts and inherently existing seeds, then yeah, the only thing that could be the agent of the sprout is the sprout itself. Of the arising of the sprout is the sprout itself, and that just simply doesn't make any sense.
Am
I right about that? That's
is the cause you would like to say conventionally the cause is the agent of the effect? Is the producer of the effect?
I'm having trouble with the abstraction. The sprout, conventionally, the sprout is caused by the seed and conditions, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but intrinsically, if there's an intrinsically existing sprout, then the seed can't be the agent of the of the sprout,
right?
Because they're two separate things.
Right.
Inherently different.
That's even another fault. Yeah. Let's continue.
Oh, that's the third fault. Okay.
Yeah, let's continue. Let's continue. So without its existence, without the existence of the sprout, I'm just going back a line. However, it makes no sense to speak of arising, which is the dependent activity dependent upon the sprout, when there is no sprout, which is the sprout being the producer, or in other words, the agent, rather than saying the producer, the agent. Therefore, since the sprout is not concurrent with the process of ceasing, the claim that the two processes are simultaneous is untenable. Therefore, since the sprout is not concurrent with the process of ceasing, the claim that the two processes are simultaneous is untenable. Is that right? Well, how did we get into ceasing now? We were talking about producing, right?
Talking about the seed ceasing, I think.
Right, right. So let me read what the FPMT translation says. There are also other faults. The sprout, which in relation to its action of production is the agent. We've already talked about that in Jimpa's translation, is a future phenomenon at the time of approaching production. That is, while it's still approaching production, it's not yet existent. It's still a future thing. Therefore, at that time, during the time of approaching production, it does not yet exist. Also, this is say there are also other faults. Also, if the sprout does not exist at that time, since the action of production, the supported existing without supporting agent, the sprout, is not even a reasonable entity. Production does not exist at the same time as cessation. Therefore, the two actions occurring at the same time is not feasible. So here it's talking about two actions of production and ceasing. This is the second fault, cannot be considered to be simultaneous. So how does that work? Has anyone grokked that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Why not?
Yeah, okay.
Nego? Because
But for the reason, what's the reason that's being proposed here? I'll read the FPMT, I'll read the reverse order now, what the FPMT translation says first. Also, so this is like the second fault about the two actions of cessation and production not being possible to be simultaneous. If the sprout does not exist at that time, that means while it's being produced, since the action of production, that which is supported. So remember when we talked about, this is a different word here. So when we're talking about the seed, say the sprout is the agent and its production is the action, right? The action is an attribute. The production is an attribute of the sprout. So when we talk about, there are many, many ways of approaching this. There's some terminology we talked about in Dura and other times in collected topics. Say, for instance, you talk about two words, chu and chuchen. Paul, what are chu and chuchen? What do they mean?
It means something like a phenomena and its qualities.
Right. Phenomena and its qualities, phenomena and its attributes. So here, the phenomena that we're talking about is the sprout, and its attribute is production. And looking one way, from another way, you can talk about the sprout is the what? Not the action, is the producer, and its production or approaching production is its action. It's that action is an attribute of the sprout. So here it says, therefore, also, if the sprout does not exist at that time, since the action of production, the supported, That means that which is supported by the sprout. That's another terminology. We're talking about tendan tempa. Where does dang means and, tempa, where does that come up? What are we talking about? Support and supported. Like say, for instance, in a mandala, in tantric practice, you talk about tendan tempe, kilkor, the supporting mandala and that which is supported by it. Or you could talk about the world, the inanimate world is the support, and that which is supported upon it are the beings within it, or maybe the plant life and so forth, tendan tempa. So here it's using that terminology. If the sprout does not exist at that time, while it's being produced, since the action of production, which is its supported attribute, it's that which is supported by the sprout, and its attribute of the sprout being the producer and the production being the action. That also, if the sprout does not exist at that time, since the action of production, the supported, existing without the supporting agent, the support, the sprout, is not even a reasonable entity. Therefore, production does not exist at the same time as cessation. The two actions occurring at the same time is not feasible. How do we suddenly get to the word cessation? Up till then, all we've been talking about is production.
I'm confused.
Oh yeah.
If you talk about you can't speak of the production until it's produced.
No, you can talk about production. It is being produced.
But the sprout
production
doesn't exist then, so how could it be the agent of production if that sprout doesn't exist?
That's exactly what the Prasangika is pointing out.
Okay.
So especially if you're talking about inherent existence, inherent production, because the production of the sprout in general is an attribute of the sprout from one point of view. You could talk about from many different points of view, but from one point of view, from the point of view of the sprout, it has an attribute of production. That's a quality that is attributable to the sprout. But if the sprout does not exist yet, how can that be? What is it? The supported, existing without the supporting agent, the sprout is not even a reasonable entity. Okay, so just that is just the part that we understand. Then it brings up production does not, well, she puts in parentheses or a bracket there, production does not exist at the same time as cessation, kind of as a consequence of that. Therefore, the two actions occurring at the same time is not feasible. So what's that last part talking about the cessation? Jimpa says, therefore, since the sprout is not concurrent with the process of ceasing, he has it phrased differently. The claim that the two processes are simultaneous is untenable. So what is happening when the sprout is in the process of ceasing, not the sprout, sorry, while the seed is in the process of ceasing, the sprout is in the process of being produced, right? So we already demonstrated that the sprout does not exist yet at the time of the production of the sprout. It's not existing at that time, so it can't actually act as the support of the action of arising. That's one thing. So if the sprout is not existing, then there can't be any process of production. I think that's the implication. And therefore, the two processes of cessation and production can't be simultaneous. That's to hold that possession is incorrect here. Untenable. What's the Tibetan say here? Mirikso. It's illogical. It's not right. There are many kinds of ways of saying the same thing in Tibetan. Mirikso. How would you translate mirikso generally, Paul?
Yeah, unreasonable, untenable.
Yeah, unreasonable, because rikpa can mean reasoning here. Untenable. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. You have to think about that. Let's continue. Now,
Oh, I have a question.
yes, do you?
So earlier, I think Richard was saying that when we were talking about the sprout being inherently existent, et cetera, he said that we can't talk about the sprout being the agent, but conventionally we can talk about the seed being the agent. You can't have that either. That's what I didn't understand Richard's comment. You can never have the seed be the agent, conventionally or otherwise, of the sprout. You can have the cause. The cause can be the seed, but that's not the agent. The agent means it's the thing that is actually doing the action, right? So the seed can never be the agent.
Okay. Think
Right?
about that. Yeah. Think about that for a while. Anna, what are you thinking?
Venerable, it's about that time. Would you like to take a break?
Yeah, let's go a little bit further, closer to 2:20-ish, sort of. Rocio, do you have a Dharma thought?
Yes. Sorry if there's noise. If there's noise outside my condo. So we have the seed and we have the sprout and we have cessation and we have production. Two things. Then I would need some clarification. So we have the seed that is cessating. The seed is in the process of ending, of cessation.
Right.
In this first process, my first question is the seed the agent of this process of cessation? First. Second is, there should be a moment where cessation becomes production. And at a certain time, cessation becomes production.
No, not necessarily. So first of all, first statement I think is correct. So the seed is the agent of its cessation in the same way that the sprout is the agent of its production. Okay, it's the support of its production. It's the let's say it's the quality, and that which is its attribute is arising or production. In this case of the seed, it's the seed is the phenomena, and its attribute is cessation or ceasing, the process of cessation. That's the action. So here, this whole discussion about cause and effect. When we talk about fire is the cause of smoke, and so forth. All of this now is you have to you sort of have to sort of think again in a deeper way, because when the cause is if the cause were to be the agent of its effect, that's a little bit different than what we're talking about here, that the effect is, because we're dividing it into the actual process of transformation from the state of being a seed to the state of being a sprout, the two different times. And there's something going on in between, right? What's going on between? When, first of all, you only have the seed, and then when it starts to disintegrate, that is when it starts to, due to the water and the heat and everything, the season, the fertilization, it's all of the cooperative conditions. It starts to now change, or in other words, to disintegrate. And then you end up at a later time. We're interested now in this interstice, but anyway, you end up at the later time when the seed is no longer there and you've got the sprout. Those are generally what we talk about in the lower tenets. We don't talk about that process of disintegration. So now we're talking about that in the same way that I mentioned in the second chapter of Fundamental Wisdom. That whole chapter is talking about a process also of coming and going. Okay, so here we're talking about the processes of disintegration and arising. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the general thought that you have a cause, and then later you have its effect, where you're not concerned with what took place in between. A little bit reminiscent about the Abhidharma discussion about death and rebirth. You know, there's death, and then later there's rebirth. So in the what do you call it? In the some of the Abhidharmas, but the higher tenets say that there's something in between those two called the bardo, the intermediate state, right? But anyway, even that, there's more detail. You have a disintegration from life, and then arising of the intermediate state, and so forth. So anyway, that's coming. So let's go a little bit further. Are you totally frustrated? KT, you okay?
I think so. So the sprout as an agent of production, that would cause a consequence that ceasing and arising would
not be simultaneous.
Not be simultaneous.
Like, yeah. So the point here is that if the sprout does not exist at the time of arising or production, it doesn't exist yet. It can't act as the support of that. So the whole activity of arising can't exist, inherent arising. Therefore, it can't be simultaneous with the act of disintegration. I think that's the point.
So conventionally, for the Prasangika, is the cessation of the seed the cause of the production of the sprout? Because it seems like I agree here that to talk about the sprout as the producer of a sprout doesn't make any sense, because you're making the producer and the produced the same.
Yeah, you would think so. But the activity of so like I say, you can look at it from different points of view. You could talk about a different thing as being the phenomena and something else as being its attribute. But let's just let that marinate a little in your mind. Let's just go through this next argument before we take a break. So in Jimpa's translation, it says, the opponent says, does not this passage in the Rice Seedling Sutra, and then the passage in question is the instant the seed ceases, the sprout arises in the manner of the ascending and descending of the sides of a scale. That's how it's translating this particular passage from the Rice Seedling Sutra. The instant the seed ceases, the sprout arises. Or as FPMT says, that quotation, the way it translates, in the manner of the rising and falling of the pans of a scale, in the very instant that the seed ceases, in that very instant the sprout is produced. So doesn't this passage present this very analogy of a scale? Come on, Prasangika, what are you talking about? It sounds quite clear that it says the instant the seed ceases, the sprout arises. Therefore, it is incorrect to refute the view that the seed and the sprout resemble the ascending and descending sides of a scale. Or as FPMT translation says, therefore, it is not suitable to refute the assertion that the two, the seed and the sprout, are like the rising and falling of the pans of a scale or the sides of a scale. So it's unclear. It says that the seed is like the ascending. Is that, what does that mean? The seed's existence? Yeah, I guess that it would have to say like the existence of the seed is going down while the production of the sprout is, or the existence of the sprout is going up. It's unclear what that means. So here, the actual point in the Rice Seedling Sutra, if you want to investigate where did that phrase come from? I have too many glasses here. Okay, so that quotation was in one way in the manner of the rising and falling of the pans of a scale. In the very instant that the seed ceases, in that very instant the sprout is produced. That's how the FPMT translated that. So this is found in chapter 1 of the Rice Seedling Sutra. I'm trying to find here. I have the verses 115 through 121, but I forgot to specify which one here. The sprout is not created by itself, is not created by another, is not created by both, not created by Ishvara, not transformed by time, not derived from Prakriti, not born without cause. Nevertheless, through the coming together of the elements of earth, water, fire, wind, space, and season, or time, the sprout forms as the seed is ceasing. Let me see the example of the scale here. Oh yeah, here. So verse 18, 1:18. How is it not discontinuous? It is not discontinuous because a sprout is not born from a seed that has already ceased, nor from a seed that has not yet ceased. Rather, like the beam of a scale tilting from up to down, a sprout is born precisely when the seed has ceased. So anyway, you can take a look in the Rice Seedling Sutra and that verse 118. Let's just go to the response, and then we're going to take a little break for you to have a chance to marinate. So the response is, it is true that this analogy is cited in the sutra, the Rice Seedling Sutra. However, this does not demonstrate arising from other. the arising from an inherently existent other, nor does it illustrate arising by virtue of intrinsic characteristic. And Chimpus has that statement in quotations is found in Chandrakirti's Majjhimaka Avatara. So Chimpus says, states Chandrakirti. Therefore, the arising that is negated in the context of the line, such arising is. So what line is that? He goes to 409. This is a reference to 619D, where Chandrakirti demonstrates how arising is illogical without its agent, the cause. Okay, so getting back to Sean and Shanka's question about agent. So Jimp is saying the agent is the cause is the cause of arising, is the agent of arising. Okay. So let's see. Such arising is, therefore, the arising that is negated in the context of the line, such arising is. So that goes back to the verse 619. I guess that's the last line. It makes no, 619, you could say 619D, if you count each line as A, B, C, D. It makes no sense to speak of an arising when there is no producer. Right? That's just what we've been going over, right? Such arising, therefore, the arising that is negated in the context of the line, such arising is the arising that exists by virtue of its own essence. The simple or mere arising of a sprout from its seed is not being negated at all. So the Tibetan says, Sabon le nyugu kewa sam gokpa tenmino. Sam means the mere. Jimpa is translating it in this context, although he translates sam many times as mere. Here he's saying the simple arising, the mere arising of a sprout from a seed is not being negated at all. So the mere arising means the merely imputed arising. So when we talk about the seed ending up with to the sprout, generally in the lower tenets, not talking so much about this middle process, analyzing it well. Prasangika is analyzing that while the seed is disintegrating. When it starts to disintegrate somewhere in this region, the sprout is beginning to be produced. The sprout is not yet existing until it gets to that point where the sprout is there, at which case the seed that has been disintegrated has totally disintegrated. So that process, merely imputed by the mind, is this process that is said here, the mere arising, the simple arising of a sprout from a seed is not negated at all. That's how the Prasangika would explain the effect arising from the cause. And then one last line, one last little idea here. One might ask, if that sutra is not showing the simultaneity of seed and sprout by way of the ascending and descending sides of a scale, then what kind of simultaneity is being illustrated illustrated by that analogy, putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, so let's take a little break here. Okay, we had a very fruitful discussion during the break there, but hopefully we can reconstruct some of that. Okay. Starting to make some sense or completely confused? Okay. Jennifer is starting to make sense. Sean is completely confused. Both are good signs. Sometimes to be completely confused, that's a good sign because it means you've got some conflicting ideas in your mind you have to work out, or maybe the teacher has not explained it correctly, is probably the case. Okay, so let's follow on from that last where it said one might ask. If that sutra, that citation, is not showing the simultaneity of the seed and the sprout by the analogy of the rising and falling sides of a scale, then what kind of simultaneity is being illustrated by that analogy? Well, we already know the answer. It's going to be the processes. The commentary states, so what commentary is that?
Chandrakirti's own commentary, Venerable George?
One would think. I'm not sure.
Or is it possibly Jayananda?
Delwar. So the ACIP says, the Tibetan says, Delwar, Chikchar du Tenne. So in the commentary, so I assume that means the Majjhimaka Vatara, but the FPMT translation doesn't mention the word commentary unless I'm mistaken. Response, they are called simultaneously arising independence, which is explained in the commentary saying. So I think that's referring to the Majjhimaka Vatara. So let's read that again from Jimpas. The commentary states that this analogy is employed to thoroughly illustrate the illusion-like mutual dependent originations which come about simultaneously and are established within an unanalyzed perspective. Whoa. Nadine, do you like that? Illusion-like dependent arisings, mutually dependent originations, which come about simultaneously and are established within an unanalyzed perspective. So Venerable Joan translated that response. They are called simultaneously arising independence. So the Tibetan is Chikchar du Tenne Jungwa. So Chikchar means at the same time. You could translate simultaneous. Chikchar du Tenne, that means through dependence. Jungwa means arisen through dependence simultaneously, or as she says, they are called simultaneously arising independence, or simultaneous, maybe you could say dependent arisings simultaneously, which is explained in the commentary saying, in order to clarify them as being established, them meaning what? The seed or the process? The seed and the sprout, or the or the disintegration and the rising? I think it's the process. They are called simultaneously arising independence, which is explained in the commentary saying, in order to clarify them as being established without investigation, that means without ultimate investigation, right? So this just means conventionally, without investigation, as simultaneously arising independence, like illusions. So how can they be like illusions? You know, you're observing them and they seem to be one way, but they're not that way. Okay. and then she has in brackets, meaning the following. The two actions are necessarily actions that exist simultaneously, the actions of disintegration and production. However, although in that sutra, the analogy of the rising and falling of the pans of the scale necessarily indicates simultaneity, it is not suitable that it explains the seed and the sprout as simultaneous. It's talking about the simultaneity of these two actions. So that's reiterates what we've been talking about. More or less the same, but from the words of Chandrakirti's commentary and everything. How are we doing? Making sense?
Could you tell me which page of the FPMT you're looking at? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe that is page 116, 116.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So then, okay. So note 410 in Jimpa's text, what does that say? That says, it's just referring to the place in the commentary where that comes. So then he continues, the phrase, dependent originations which come about simultaneously needs to be related to the simultaneous presence of the two processes. So dependent originations are processes, you can say. Dependent originations which come about simultaneously needs to be related to the simultaneous presence of the two processes of disintegration, in this case, of disintegration and production. Furthermore, in that sutra, the analogy of the ascending and descending sides of a scale is supposed to illustrate two things that are simultaneous. But this cannot be related to the simultaneity of seed and sprout. So what are the two things? In this case, the process of disintegration and the process of production. But it cannot be related to the simultaneity of seed and sprout. The seed is not simultaneous ever with the sprout. Therefore, the rejection of the simultaneity of the two acts here is that of two. Therefore, the rejection of the simultaneity of two acts here is that of two acts said to exist by virtue of their intrinsic nature. The rejection, what is being rejected here is the simultaneity of inherently existent actions. They're not inherently existent. They're just dependently arisen, illusion-like. Oh, wow. This will really give you some food for meditation. Temporal coexistence of two acts in general is not being rejected. For as long as one accepts arising, production, the cessation of the cause and the approach of the effect to the point of arising would have to be taken as simultaneous. We okay? Yeshi? You okay? Yeshiana? Yeah? Michael, we haven't seen you. I can't judge by your countenance whether you're pondering or...
Oh, I'm pondering, all right. Sorry,
Okay.
I can't really show myself right now, but I'm pondering indeed.
You can't show yourself. I thought, okay, got it. Okay. So then, where is it? Oh, yeah, we still got a ways to go. Okay. Thus, there is nothing wrong with accepting arising per se and arising on the conventional level. Again, when he says per se, the Tibetan says, Deni kewa samdang tane du kewa kelempala mirikpa mekyang. So he's saying per se is mere. And so there's nothing wrong with accepting mere arising and arising on the conventional level. The contradiction only comes into play for ultimate arising or arising by virtue of intrinsic characteristics, or let's say inherent production, ultimate production, and inherently existent production. That's the only thing that's being rejected. In the first case, on the conventional level, even if the processes of cause and effect ceasing and arising are simultaneous, when we say the process of cause and effect, that means the ceasing of the cause, the disintegration of the cause, and the arising production of the effect, they are simultaneous. Yet the cause and effect themselves need not coexist in time. So the cause being the seed, I say need not exist. I'm not sure what I say, need not. It doesn't exist simultaneous with its effect. In the latter case, on the ultimate level, however, if the processes are simultaneous, the cause and effect themselves must necessarily coexist in time as well. So that would be the contradiction with if you talk about ultimately existing production from a cause and so forth. So then Jimpa says, here is the point. It doesn't state so obviously in Tibetan. Here is the point. I'm not sure why he says that. Anyway, here is the point. When it comes to the activity of an effect's arising, it is in relation to an agent, such as the sprout, that one can say things such as, this arises. Okay, again, now we're getting to the, remember where we talked about before, it seems counterintuitive to say that the sprout was the agent of the production. Here it's going back to that. When it comes to the activity of an effect's arising or production, it is in relation to its agent or an agent, such as the sprout, that one can say such things as, this arises. So there is a mutual relationship of the support and the supported. So remember we talked about this before, the agent could be called the support because what supported upon it is its activity, or you could call the sprout, which is the agent of this production. You could call it the phenomena, and its attribute being its activity of being produced. Go back. So there is a mutual relationship of the support and the supported, the agent and its activity. Now, if the two, the support and the supported, were to possess ultimate existence, then it would be illogical for the two to change their natures into something else. Right? So here we're not, the two not meaning seed and sprout, we're talking about the sprout and its activity, its action, the action of the sprout, which is it's being produced, right? It would be illogical for the two to change their natures into something else. This would mean that the activity of arising, production, would exist at all times as that which is being supported by the sprout, with the consequence that even when the sprout and the like are in the arising phase, the sprout must exist as the support of the arising process. Don't get confused. This is what we've talked about several times from different verbal constructions. The sprout must exist as a support for its arising process. Well, read that sentence. This would mean that the activity of arising would exist at all times as the supported, with the consequence that even when the sprout and the like are in the arising phase, they're still in the process of being produced, they're not yet existing, the sprout would have to exist as the support of the arising process. Since such a standpoint is vulnerable to objections, you can find many logical inconsistencies with that, as we have done before, such as the fact that cause and effect would be simultaneous. It is untenable. In the conventional sense of arising, however, even if two things are once the support and supported, so in the ultimate sense, they would have to be, if something is at one point is the support, it would have to always be the support of that which is supported on it. If something, the sprout, were the support of its action of arising, it would always have to be that way. But from the conventional sense of arising, on the other hand, even if two things are once the support and the supported, they need not remain so at all times. So the situation differs between these two cases.
Doesn't make much sense still, because it seems like, I mean, I understand that they're saying that you can't talk about arising of a sprout until there is a sprout, correct?
No, you can talk about arising before the sprout has actually arisen, because it's in the process of arising.
I thought they said that you had to have the support of the sprout. So if the
Oh, you're
sprout
talking about
doesn't
ultimate point of view. Yeah. You have to have, yeah, from the ultimate point of view, if the support and the supported, let's say if you're talking about from inherent existence, if things ultimately existed, if they were inherently existent, then that which is the support of the activity of arising, the sprout being the support, and it's that which is supported upon it, or its attribute is the process of arising. They would have to exist in that context, in that relationship of support and supported all the time, because they're inherently existent or ultimately existent.
I mean,
that means the sprout would have to exist earlier, before it actually arose, as the support of the arising from the ultimate point of view. But from the conventional point of view, it can still be the support of the arising. Okay, think, yeah, a lot of thinking is necessary. So then Jima says, to summarize, the text doesn't say to summarize. He has it in brackets, but so the the act of a sprout's arising, the production of a sprout, that's an activity, right? Which temporarily coexists with seed. I think he's left off another article here, unless I'm wrong, which temporarily coexists with the seed or the seed. The act of a sprout's arising, which temporarily coexists with the seed. Is that the case? So with a seed and a sprout, you've got the process of arising of the sprout. That process or act of arising, does that exist simultaneously with the seed?
Doesn't seem like it would, because the sprout doesn't exist yet.
No, I'm not talking about the sprout. The act of arising of the sprout.
But you're
Yes.
talking about the arising of the sprout when there's no sprout.
No, but the,
No,
but the
we're
arising,
talking.
it can coexist because we said that the seed is the agent of that arising.
Okay, leave that aside. Just look at the processes. You've got the the disintegration of the seed is an activity, right? The ceasing of the seed is simultaneous, like the pans of the scale, or you could talk about the bar, depends on how you read the Tibetan, rising and falling. They are simultaneous. The activities of disintegration and production are simultaneous. While the seed is still being disintegrated, it exists. So the activity of production of the sprout is simultaneous with the seed. Right?
Venerable George, I go back to my question that I had, that we have the seed and the sprout and the, cessation and the arising. And I was trying to pinpoint a middle point where cessation ends and production starts. But then, if I understand correctly, then the production of the sprout starts the second of this, on the same time cessation starts, and cessation ends at the last moment of production.
I think that's right. Let's see. So we start first of all with the seed, a couple of hours, months before it arises as a sprout, okay? You planted the seed. And then with the right conditions, it starts to get close to wanting to sprout, right? You know that situation. You planted the seeds, you've waited for them. You kind of feel like they're getting warm and hot. And
can we say that it is close to cessating?
No. It's like, hold on. The seed, when it starts the process that will lead to the sprout, that process is called the disintegration of the seed. That process, the seed is still there, and it's slowly disintegrating or disappearing in the process of while the process of arising of the sprout is going on. Those two processes are taking place. At that point, while those two processes are taking place, the seed exists. The sprout does not yet exist. At the end of that process, when the sprout exists, the two processes of disintegration or cessation and arising, the two processes no longer exist. Only the sprout exists. The seed is already disintegrated and ceased. Okay? So let's see here. The act of a sprout's arising, which temporarily coexists with the seed, right? The sprouts arising, the process, the activity of arising is simultaneous with the seed, temporarily. In the process of the sprout approaching the moment of arising, so it's approaching, and so it's not just at the beginning of the process of arising, it's approaching the actual production. is the process of the sprout approaching the moment of arising. Such a process and the sprout are the supported and the support, or you could say this, the sprout is the support and the process of arising or approaching arising is the process. Yet, at the time of this process, although the sprout does not exist, its process can exist, right? If it were ultimately production, the sprout would have to act as the support of that. But because it's just conventionally existent, merely existent, the sprout doesn't have to actually exist yet. Such a process in the sprout and such a process and the sprout, or let's say the sprout and the process are the support and the supported. Yet at the time of this process, although the sprout does not exist, its process can exist. And there is no contradiction in maintaining this. This is analogous to the following example. Generally speaking, if a thing that is in relation does not exist, the other relatum will also not exist. So cut that out in your mind, that phrase, so that's important to know. What is that the quality of? That's a quality of relations. How many different kinds of relations are there? Stephen, do you remember?
There are two, Venerable George. There's natural relations, so an object and its qualities, and causal relations, cause and effect.
Yeah, right. So the two kinds of, so in either case, if a thing that is in relation does not exist, the other relatum will also not exist. That's kind of a characteristic of a relationship. So in a natural relationship, say, what has a natural relationship like sound and impermanence? Or let's say product and impermanence, right? They're natural. Oh yeah, let's say sound and impermanence. So if sound were to not exist, the impermanence of the sound would not exist, right? If the impermanence of the sound did not exist, the sound would not exist because they have a natural relationship. If you talk about cause and effect, if the cause is not present, the effect will not be present. This is sort of the general characteristic of relationships. Generally speaking, if a thing that is in relation, in a relationship with something else, does not exist, the other relatum, the other item of the relationship, the other member of the relationship, will also not exist. Furthermore, the seed is this thing that is in relation, while the sprout is the other relatum. So when you have a cause and effect, the cause always comes first, the effect comes later, right? So the seed is the thing that is in relation to something else. It's going to be in relation to a causal relation to its sprout, right? While the sprout is the other relatum. Nevertheless, one can say without contradiction that at the time of the sprout, the seed is no more, but the sprout is present. Making sense? We're okay? Okay. So now we'll go over this next paragraph in class on Monday, but we're going to make a stab at it now. If one understands how to posit the flawless Madhyamaka standpoint on the basis of understanding well how to refute the opponent through these types of reasoning, and how our arguments do not revert to our own side, one is then a true Madhyamika, or Venerable Jones said, a true middle wayer, middle wayer, Madhyamika. So this paragraph, yeah. So Geshe Sopa, in 2002, when we were at this point in the text, he spent a lot of time on just this one little idea right here. So let me read this to you, and if you're interested, we can post his words. This is my edited transcript of it. So this is talking about De Dewe Sulgi Rikbe. If one understands how to posit the flawless Madhyamika standpoint, this section, exactly this paragraph. Now, Geshe said, now this is a little bit interesting. So when Geshe said something like that, that meant it's like, some juice to be extracted from these dry bones. This is a little bit interesting. How? For example, the Sautrantika and lower schools, they say that the sprout and the seed are Dondambar Drupa. They're ultimately existent, right? Dondambar Drupa, ultimately established. But they will say, still at the time of the seed, the sprout has not yet come, right? They would say that at the time of the seed, the sprout has not come. When the sprout rises, the seed is gone. Okay, so this is sort of like those two situations: seed, sprout. Okay. The same thing for fire and smoke, isn't it? So what is there? And I had in parentheses here, did he mean their idea, or what is there? They are not subtle like this, but I think they have also a lot of Dondampar Drupa means the sprout is ultimately existent. The seed is ultimately existent. Yet the sprout is related to the seed. So then you're going to get into some difficulty, right? If these two things are ultimately existent, truly existent, Dondambar. What does Dondambar Drupa mean? Does that mean ultimately existent or truly existent? Paul, Dondambar. Dondambar Demba means ultimate existence.
Ultimately, yeah.
Dondamba is what? Parama, right? Dondambar Demba, Parama Satya. So Don Damba means, you could say holy object or highest object. So that means ultimate, in the ultimate, or ultimate truth, in the ultimate, ultimately existent. The sprout is related to the seed. That relationship is not ultimate, they may say. Geshe saying, this is interesting, he said. There's something interesting here. He says, they would, to try to get out of their conundrum, they say that the seed is ultimately existent, the sprout is ultimately existent, but their relationship is not ultimately existent. There are many imputed things. Tokpe takpasam, that means merely imputed by the mind, right? By conception. We've come across that expression. We'll see it again before. Tokpa means conception. Takpa means imputed or designated. Sam means merely. So phenomena are merely imputed by name and conception. We talked about that in many cases when we talked about the practice of emptiness. earlier course at Shantideva Center. How do phenomena exist? As mere imputations upon the basis of designation. What's doing the imputing? Well, the mind, but they're imputed by name or conception. You can say that like in the Vajrakara Sutra, it's the Buddha says, Bodhisattva is just a name. At other times, you could say Bodhisattva is just a concept. So that means you can't find it anywhere. It's just imputed by conception, merely imputed by conception. Any kind of general things, relationships, for instance, is there a relationship between a generality and a particular, Paul?
No.
There's no relationship between a generality and its particulars?
Well, are we talking? No, because a generality is merely a concept, and that's constructed in the mind through exclusion, and the particulars are what actually exist, and so there are no real generalities, and therefore there's no relationship between the two.
Yeah, one way of looking at it. Okay.
If you want to go all Dharmakirti on it.
Relationship, general and particular, also particular. The tree itself that is being a particular of this, then that is also not real. Geshe-la was saying, if it's a particular of a generality, something which is being general of that is also not real. So many things are tokpe taksam. So the relationship of the generality and the particular is just imputed by the mind. As you said, it's not real. Okay. Ngopo meba. Ngome means there are many kinds of ngomes. So I'll just read what, because should be finishing. Just read one more thing and we'll continue on Monday. For example, no elephant is general. How would you say that in Tibetan? Anyone? Oh, we don't have our Tibetan. We don't have Michael or Suvansh today. We don't have a job. So Paul, all the burden is on you. How would you say no elephant?
Choklang Mayimba or Choklang Mepa?
So yeah, Choklang, or let's say, yeah, Choklang Me, because he's talking about Ngome, right? No elephant is a generality. So that means is the absence of elephant exist in my room? Here?
The absence of an elephant exists in your room, yes.
Okay. So so that's a generality. No elephant. Yeah. No elephant exists in general, right? It has particular no elephant. So for instance, the particular no elephant is the no elephant in my room. No elephant in general is a generality. Okay. It has many particulars. Okay, you could have the no elephant in Sean's room, no elephant in Richard's room, and so forth. We are all particulars of no elephant, right? Are you a particular of no elephant? Are you a non-elephant? Yeah. Louise, are you a non-elephant? You're
specifically or in general?
Are you a particular? Okay. We are all particulars of no elephant, right? Non-elephant. This place place is no elephant. That means the temple where Geshe-la was singing, this place is no elephant, is a particular of that. Particular has that right, yeah? But that doesn't mean the particulars themselves do not exist truly, according to Sautrantika. Okay? They are ngopo, they will say. Being as a particular of that is not real. Okay, I'm going to leave that. We'll post.
Venerable George, just
Yes.
as a quick anecdote, I think you were there when Geshe Sopa was teaching Lekshe Ningpo, and he was talking about the first time His Holiness came to Madison to give Kala Chakra.
Yeah.
Do you remember this anecdote? And he said that he was standing at the front gate with the head of the state police, and they were waiting for His Holiness to arrive. And the trooper looked at the sign and said, "Deer Park," huh? He said, "Where's the deer?" And Geshe Sopa said, "Merely imputed."
Tears are merely imputed here. Okay, so thank you. So I'll just finish that next sentence, because then we'll set up for theoretically beginning with the next outline, refuting arising from other where cause and effect are regarded as simultaneous. So just this last sentence here. If, in contrast, we encounter those who utter all sorts of fallacious arguments when engaged in refutation, but when these arguments are upended, they seek haven in duplicitous bluster. That's Chimpa's translation of something much simpler, as you said, like baloney. We should relate to them as Chandrakirti says in his clearly worded Prasanapada, the clear words, where he states, "I will not debate with those who blatantly deny what is obvious." So at that point, and MacDonald's translation of that, this you can find in her translation, which some of you have, I think they've downloaded, page 61. So she says, "And we do not debate with a madman, unmataka." So Venerable Joan translated, "At the time of refuting, having mentioned only superficial reasonings, when they are turned back upon oneself," what that means is some people who tout themselves as being Madhyamikas, when they give superficial reasonings, and when those reasonings are turned back onto them, they have no defense. Here, every time the opponent has responded with some kind of objection, Chandrakirti is also always able to refute that, right? He's a true Madhyamaka, a real middle wayer. So at the time of refuting, having mentioned only superficial reasonings, when they are turned back upon oneself, one can only set out denials. Like, I have no position, therefore I am faultless. Not understanding the true meaning of what Nagarjuna meant by that. He had no truly existent, no inherently existent position, no truly existent, inherently existent thesis, and so forth. They fall back on some kind of denials. As is said in clear words, we do not debate with the crazy. That's how Joan translated. Jimpa says, who blatantly deny what is obvious. Right. So the Tibetan just says, Kochak, that's plural for we. So that's a plural for me. So the we, Nyombo Dang Lenshik du Misodo. We do not debate together with Nyomongba, the crazy, those who are full of delusions and so forth. So in that context, Kedrupje, the famous disciple of Lama Tsongkhapa, also had many kinds of ability. Whatever he would be debating when he would be refuting others, he was fearless because he was unlike these so-called Madhyamikas, who once some kind of rebuttal was put upon them, they were unable to defend the Madhyamika position. He always would be able to defend it with logic. So we're going to end there. We're going to begin next time with this outline: refuting arising from other, where cause and effect are regarded as simultaneous. And yeah, so we should finish in our next class before the break between the sessions. Next class will be the last of this 6 sessions, because we're dividing it up into 6 and 5 before the August break. So we will have we'll have a class. We'll have a discussion group on Monday this week, but I may be a couple minutes late. I have a therapeutic massage I have to at 12 o'clock. So I might finish at 1 and then get back here just at 12:40 or 1:45 before 2 o'clock. So if I'm a couple of minutes late, if you come to class, be there. Don't leave. Thanks for your
Quite
attention.
memorable today.
Before we put up the dedications and everything, does anyone have any questions or observations? Nothing that's stuck in your craw. Do you know that expression? I wonder where that comes from. Something stuck in your craw. Okay, so we're going to dedicate the merits that we've created. Due to these virtues, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that same state or level, to that same level of enlightenment. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow. So in my own continuum and in the continuum of others, that whatever semblance of bodhicitta that has not arisen in them yet, may it take root and grow, and may that which has arisen, and some beings have some semblance of bodhicitta, may it not diminish but increase more and more. And then prayer for Lama Zopa's quick return. Peerless teacher and assembly of bodhisattvas, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, conqueror Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the conqueror's teachings and for mother living beings, other wandering beings, you suddenly departed to peace. You passed away into nirvana. At this, I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the triple gem and the great waves of mind generation, that means bodhicitta, of the children of the conquerors, the bodhisattvas, by these truths, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. Finally, for all of our spiritual teachers, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by mercy, illuminating spiritual friends, please live long and stable lives. Okay, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to other activities. We're just a couple of minutes over 3:15. Look forward to seeing some of you on Monday. I will ask the ever, where is Doris? There's the ever active Doris to post this transcript, my excerpt from the transcript of what Geshe Sopa said about that paragraph, and we'll discuss it more on Monday. And so hope to see some of you on Monday, and hopefully next Saturday. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Have a good weekend.
Thank
Venerable,
you.
Venerable
Thank you,
George,
Venerable George.
let
Thank
me
you
say
very
something,
much.
Venerable George. Let me say something. Thank you very much for reminding me of Geshe Sopa explaining this, because I clearly remember him talking the whole day about an elephant, and I was thinking, what is going on? Because I couldn't understand. But my only note of that day is study ! Like
Mhm.
my note is study, and I took a hiatus, seems of 22 years, and I'm finally going to,
You're finally figuring out
study.
why he was
Oh,
talking about there's no elephant in the room. Okay.
Aw.
And
I
so
have
this
no
comes up,
idea.
it comes up other contexts also. So this, when we talk about the fact that there are many, many kinds of permanent phenomena other than space and the two cessations and emptiness, there are all these ngomes, these non-existent things like no elephant and so forth. So
Yeah.
thank you for
But
that remembrance.
it's fantastic that I said study ! The intention was there, like, Rocio, please study. And 22 years later,
You're
I'm
studying.
here, making.
Kapsuchi, I take refuge in you. Take care.
bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.